Shouts echoed across the valley. "We surrender!" The SEAL commander dropped his weapon, hands raised high. Enemy fighters laughed harshly, moving closer, rifle barrels pressed against heads. The ground trembled. From behind the hill, a massive steel shadow emerged, a lone tank, main gun lowered. Radio crackled, a calm female voice. "You're not dead yet. I'm bringing everyone home." The air collapsed. The entire valley held its breath. Reina Vasquez, 28 years old. Long brown hair, slender build, quiet eyes, living silently in the camp. Every morning, she wiped each scratch on her Abrams tank, quietly inspecting it, like caring for a living creature. She shared her water ration with young soldiers exhausted from training. She wrote letters home for an illiterate private, then quietly dropped them in the mailbox without signing her name. Teammates mocked her. "Tanks aren't the primary tactical weapon here. You're just a backup driver." Others sneered. Kraken unit was disbanded. The past can't save anyone now. Reina didn't argue. She just silently painted 3 small white dots on the turret. Her private ritual before each mission. When word came that SEALs were being deployed to Batu Valley, she stopped polishing armor and stared at the map hanging in the storage shed for a long time. The other tank crews didn't understand her connection to that piece of machinery. To them, it was just another weapon system. To Reina, it was a partner she'd learned to trust with her life. She knew every sound the engine made, every vibration that meant something needed attention, every quirk in the hydraulic systems that controlled the turret. "Tanks are slow," the infantry would say. "By the time you get there, the fighting's over." But Reina knew something they didn't. Tanks weren't just about speed. They were about unstoppable force when everything else had failed. During her downtime, she'd study topographic maps, memorizing elevation changes, slope angles, bridge weight limits, information that seemed useless until it wasn't. The young soldiers would ask her why she cared so much about an old tank. "Because it doesn't know how to cry for help," she'd reply. "So the driver has to learn to listen for it." They didn't understand what she meant. Metal couldn't feel pain. But Reina had learned to hear the subtle changes that meant mechanical stress, component failure, system breakdown. Her Abrams wasn't just a machine. It was 68 tons of American steel that had never let her down when she needed it most. The tank bore scars from previous battles, scratches from shrapnel, dents from near misses, wear patterns from countless miles of hard service. Reina knew each mark, each imperfection. She could tell you which battle each scar came from, which enemy had tried and failed to stop this machine. Other crews rotated through different vehicles. Reina always requested the same tank. They'd been through too much together to separate now. A mechanic would later recall, "She told me tanks don't know how to cry when they're hurt, so the driver has to learn to listen for them." I thought she was crazy, until I saw her save those SEALs. Reina Vasquez and her tank were about to prove that sometimes one person with the right tools can change everything. The SEAL team walked into an ambush. 3 directions of concentrated fire, wounded soldiers dropping behind inadequate cover. Ammunition running low, a young soldier shouted, "We can't hold!" The commander dropped his weapon, voice breaking, "We surrender!" Enemy fighters howled with victory, pressing rifle muzzles against SEAL heads. Reina sat in the supply depot, monitoring fragmented radio transmissions, catching the word surrender. Command center forbade intervention. "Batu is a trap. Hold your positions." Reina studied the map, circling the treacherous climbing route. Only tank treads could navigate that terrain. She fired up the engine. The turbine roared to life, gauges jumping as the massive machine awakened. She loaded 3 rounds into the ready rack, checked the .50 caliber machine gun and coaxial 7.62 millimeter. Whispered to herself, "Bring them home." The Abrams climbed the slope in evening shadows, loose rocks cascading down as Reina gripped the controls, maintaining balance on the impossible incline. 68 tons of main battle tank wasn't designed for mountain climbing, but Reina had done this before. She knew exactly how far she could push the machine before physics took over. Near the crest, she killed the lights, switched to thermal imaging, scanning heat signatures to locate the pinned seals in the valley below. The scene was clear through her optics. 12 seals surrounded. Weapons discarded, enemy fighters moving in for capture or execution. Radio transmission, female voice cutting through static. "You're not dead yet. I'm bringing everyone home." The rumble of the turbine engine echoed down into the valley. Enemy fighters stepped back. SEALs looked up in shock. Reina had violated direct orders by leaving her position. She'd committed an Abrams main battle tank to an unauthorized rescue operation. Her military career was probably over. But 12 SEALs were about to die, and she was the only one who could reach them. The tank crested the hill like a steel mountain rising from the earth. To the enemy fighters below, it must have looked like divine intervention. To the SEALs, it looked like salvation. Reina's voice came through their radios, calm and professional. "Stay low. I'm coming down." She began the descent, using the tank's weight and traction to navigate slopes that would be impossible for wheeled vehicles. The enemy fighters were already repositioning, trying to bring RPGs and heavy weapons to bear on the tank. But Reina had the advantage of elevation, armor protection, and overwhelming firepower. She also had something else, the absolute determination to keep a promise she'd made to herself years ago. No one gets left behind, not on her watch. The Abrams reached the valley floor like an avalanche of steel and determination. 68 tons of American engineering, operated by someone who'd never lost a fight when it really mattered. Enemy fighters scattered as the massive machine maneuvered to shield the SEALs. A JTAC would later recall, "I just heard that turbine engine and a woman's voice on the radio. I knew that either we were all going home together or we were all staying there forever." Reina Vasquez had arrived to even the odds. What happened next would be talked about in military circles for years to come. Reina lowered the main gun, locking onto her first target, a truck-mounted DSHK heavy machine gun. The first MPAT round exploded on impact, the target erupting in flames that lit up the entire valley. The turret rotated smoothly, high explosive round striking the mortar position, shrapnel scattering enemy fighters. The coaxial 7.62 millimeter swept across the battlefield, forcing enemy heads down, breaking their coordination. Enemy fighters fired an RPG. Reina lowered the tank's profile hull down, letting the rocket streak overhead and explode harmlessly behind her position. Her commander's independent thermal viewer detected a BMP infantry fighting vehicle hidden in the tree line, its heat signature blazing bright against the cool evening air. Reina switched to heat ammunition. Laser ranged at 1.4 kilometers, compensated for wind drift, and fired. The BMP burst into flames, the encirclement collapsing as enemy forces lost their armored support. The SEALs low-crawled behind the tank's protective shadow. The commander shouted, "Move! Move!" Reina gunned the engine. The Abrams bulldozed through an earthen barrier, its steel hull shielding the SEALs from incoming fire. The .50 caliber machine gun on the turret roared to life, sweeping away every muzzle flash that appeared. One SEAL slipped near the track system. Reina hit the brakes hard, lowered the main gun threateningly toward enemy positions, buying time for the soldier to regain his footing. The tank's armor deflected small arms fire like rain on a roof. What couldn't penetrate the protection couldn't hurt the people sheltering behind it. But this wasn't just about firepower and armor. This was about tactical expertise earned through years of combat operations. Reina understood how to use terrain, how to position the tank for maximum effect, how to coordinate movement with infantry forces. She'd been trained not just to drive the tank, but to think like the tank, to become part of the machine until human reflexes and mechanical capability merged into something more effective than either could achieve alone. When the entire SEAL team reached the valley exit, Reina rotated the turret, fired one final round to destroy the barrier blocking pursuit, then backed the tank up the slope. The enemy had lost their heavy weapons, their coordination, and their will to continue the fight. What had been an execution about to happen had become a rout in favor of the Americans. Silence followed the storm of gunfire, only the sound of heavy breathing and the cooling metal of the tank's systems. The SEAL commander touched the painted words, "Bring them home," inside the crew compartment, whispering, "We're alive because of you." Reina nodded slightly, saying nothing. But there was more to this story than a simple rescue operation. The radio crackled with urgent transmissions. Command wanted to know who had authorized the tank deployment. Reina had disobeyed direct orders to stay in position. "Vasquez, explain your actions," came the stern voice from headquarters. 12 SEALs were about to be executed, Reina replied calmly. "I prevented that outcome. You violated direct orders. I saved 12 lives." The SEAL commander took the radio microphone. "Command, this is SEAL Team 7, requesting immediate commendation for Tank Commander Vasquez. Her actions saved all 12 members of this unit." There was a long pause on the radio. Finally, "Understood. Full report required upon return to base." The SEALs looked at Reina with new respect. She hadn't just saved their lives. She'd risked her career to do it. "Why?" the commander asked. "Why disobey orders for us?" Reina's answer was simple. Because leaving people behind isn't an option. The tank began the long journey back to base, carrying 12 SEALs who'd been minutes away from death. In the crew compartment, scratched into the metal, someone had carved, "Reina Vasquez, Guardian Angel." She'd never asked for recognition. She'd just kept a promise to herself. Bring them home. All of them. Every time. The official report simply stated, SEAL team extracted with armored support. No mention of Reina's name, but every soldier knew the truth. A week later, Reina sat eating soup in the corner of the mess hall, quiet as usual. A SEAL pulled up a chair next to her, setting down his tray. A second one joined, then the entire team gathered around her table. Nobody spoke. They just shared the meal together. The commander placed a cup of black coffee, no sugar, in front of Reina. "Heard you like it this way." Reina smiled gently. "I just want everyone to get home." A young SEAL pushed a small embroidered patch toward her. "Home." He said nothing else. The gesture said everything that words couldn't express. Reina had become more than their rescuer. She'd become the person they trusted to bring them back when everything else failed. In the following weeks, her tank became known throughout the base. Soldiers would nod respectfully when she drove past. New arrivals would be told the story. the woman who violated orders to save 12 lives. But Reina never changed. She still performed the same quiet maintenance, still shared her rations with younger soldiers, still painted those 3 white dots before each mission. The difference was that now people understood what those rituals meant. She wasn't just maintaining a machine, she was preparing a lifeline for people who might need it. "Ma'am," a young tank driver asked, "how do you know when to break the rules?" Reina looked at him seriously. When following the rules means letting good people die. Her tank bore new markings now. Along with "Bring them home," someone had painted 12 small stars near the driver's hatch. One for each SEAL she'd saved. Reina hadn't asked for the stars, but she hadn't removed them either. They served as a reminder of what mattered most. Not regulations, not career advancement, not official recognition. What mattered was the promise she'd made to herself, and kept with steel and determination. The SEALs continued their missions, but with different confidence now. They knew that if everything went wrong, if they were surrounded and outnumbered and facing death, there was someone who would come for them. Someone who would risk everything to honor a simple promise. Bring them home, all of them, every time. Some battles go unwitnessed, some heroes never get their names mentioned. What keeps people alive isn't medals, but promises. Bringing each other home. A lone tank can't replace an entire army, but it's enough to open a path for those who thought they were out of options. Reina Vasquez never called herself a hero. She just kept a quiet promise. Bring them home. Her story reminds us that heroism often means breaking rules for the right reasons. Sometimes following orders means letting good people die. Sometimes doing the right thing means risking everything you've worked for. The 12 SEALs she saved went on to complete dozens more missions, protecting countless other lives. The ripple effect of her decision stretched far beyond that single valley. One tank, one woman, one promise kept. In the end, that was enough to change everything. True heroes don't seek recognition. They just refuse to let their people down when it matters most. If you believe in quiet stories like this one, leave a comment. And don't forget to subscribe to SN Quiet Stories. We tell the stories that shouldn't be forgotten. Real people creating and telling stories, not mass-produced AI.